we're back with night 2 of my WrestleMania 37 review. And I'm happy to say, at least this night was way better than the first. After a main event that should have never been in the spot that it was, I don't know how they made that mistake again. Some people seem happy with it. I think there's more approval of the Belair Sasha Banks match than there was for the triple threat that was at 35 2 years ago. I don't know what people were looking at, why they thought this was such a great, astounding match and everything. Bianca Belair crying her eyes out. I mean, guys, the one thing that maybe I didn't convey enough in the part 1 review, the night 1 review, is the fact that that was a special moment for Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 12. Now, this is a cocky wrestler. This is a guy that, didn't apologize for anything. He was a true renegade, even at that time. Even in 1996, Shawn Michaels, to see that guy break down the boyhood dream coming true and everything, and when McMahon announced that, on commentary, you really felt that. You knew it was a special moment. That was a big 60-minute match, and Shawn Michaels fought his heart out with Bret Hart to get to that point. So you knew that seeing him cry, a grown man like that, it really was a true special and magical moment. Little did we know that 2 decades later, we would see wrestlers just bawling their eyes out constantly, match after match. This is something that they have never gotten past, and it's always with the women. And this is the funny thing, that you've had the guys even cry. For God's sakes, we even saw Drew McIntyre crying about Sheamus on Raw. But whenever someone wins a title, oh, forget about it. It's Cry Me a River. It's Justin Timberlake inspired nonsense all the time. But Belair, even at the beginning of the match, because when I was looking for my thumbnail for my night 1 review, I knew I wanted to use something from the Belair Sasha match, and I didn't know what it was that I wanted to use, but I ended up going with her title win, crying face. But right before the match began, I remembered, oh yeah, she was even crying. Her lip was all puckered up, and I was like, oh my God, really, just, I'm so sick and tired of these wrestlers with, I'm living my dream. Where is it that, I'm just here to kick ass and win titles and be the best? It's always, I'm just happy to be here and I'm living my dream. I am so sick and tired of that. That never was a thing back in the day. Wrestlers actually had a purpose other than that. I watched wrestling ever since I'm a little kid, and now I'm just happy to be a part of the WWE. Oh my God, just no. Anyway, let's get into the show here. So, as I said, this was a better night overall, a much, much better main event. This was in a large part due to the main event, by the way. But there's some other pretty good, decent things that happened tonight, so we're going to talk about them right now. So, as we started off, Hogan and Titus O'Neil come out dressed as pirates. Now, I don't know how they got through night 1 without doing this, but somehow, some way, they just couldn't resist putting pirate outfits on the host, Hogan and Titus. And this was just, guys, there's one thing about, when wrestling was goofier, but, you had JR wearing a toga at WrestleMania 9. Does anyone remember that? Of course you do. But that was during a time when just wrestling was goofier, when it was a lot more lighthearted, and it wasn't necessarily good either. So, I don't know how we decided, let's get away from that goofy stuff, trying to make the product more serious, but still have a sense of when to get lighthearted when it really mattered. Now it's got to be constantly goofy. Hogan wearing the pirate suit. I mean, I laughed at it, but I'm really thinking what about integrity? What about upholding this man's legacy? He's a Hall of Famer. He's the guy who put this company on the map, basically. And he's a comedy character. He's dressed up the way Paul Burchill was, and we weren't supposed to take him seriously either. Remember when he pulled that gimmick? So instead we've got... and it's not even like Paul Burchill where they really gave him like a really good looking pirate costume. Like looking back on, like you could go back on the network. Well, now you can't because it's on Peacock. But you could go back when that guy used to wrestle on SmackDown. They got like a pretty good looking costume, very Pirates of the Caribbean-ish. But this was like a Party City costume, a very cheap, lame looking costume where it really just looks like a costume. This was a fail on all ends of the spectrum as far as I'm concerned. So we'll jump into the first match. We've got The Fiend and Orton, and this has been a lead up, like we haven't seen in a long time. There has been 4 months, 5 months of build between these guys. Orton lit The Fiend on fire. Somehow he's back. I guess he puts, and he did have all the burns and everything, and I complimented them for staying consistent and doing a pretty good job with the overall look. I know a lot of people made fun of it, but I was like, okay, they did a pretty good makeup job on the guy. It looked decent enough, better than they had done in the past for others. But now, like, all the burns are gone. I guess he got some really good aloe, and he just kind of rubbed it on the burns because they're completely gone now. Anyway, Alexa Bliss plays the Jack in the Box. She's turning the rod, and out comes The Fiend in a pretty good entrance. He jumps off onto Orton. We're off to the races. Orton hits his signature spots, the DDT, the belly to back onto the table. And The Fiend is no-selling it, just as he always does. And that's part of his character. Okay, he's unbeatable. He's undead at this point. But then, we got Orton going down for the RKO. The Fiend gets him in position for the Sister Abigail, but before he could do it, Alexa Bliss has become a human fountain. That stuff that was coming out of Orton's mouth, now it's coming out of her eyes, coming out of her mouth and nose, and, from all orifices, basically. And Orton sneaks up from behind as the Fiend is looking at her, hits the RKO, and it's over. Just one RKO. And I get it, I always talk about, we shouldn't have wrestlers kicking out of finishers. But this is The Fiend, the guy that no-sells everything. He's down after one RKO. And after this is all said and done, The Fiend just basically stands there looking at Alexa. And nothing happens. We just cut out, basically. It's off to the next segment. And after all this build-up and everything, you could say, like, okay, well, we'll probably get a follow-up on Raw. That's all fine and well, but you know that the follow-up is going to be absolute shit. You know how they usually explain things. We're going to get some kind of topsy-turvy, really convoluted explanation for what happened here. And this is a WrestleMania match. There's no excuse why this shouldn't have been a cinematic match. Of all the matches that you can make something into a cinematic match, how is Bray Wyatt doing a cinematic match with John Cena? With basically no build-up to it. And here we have tons and tons of build-up, not all of it good, mind you. A lot of it not very good at all. But here's your opportunity here. You give him a decent enough entrance, and then you just cap it off with just something like, okay, so I guess she's turning on The Fiend now. After helping to resurrect them and torturing Randy Orton with the black stuff coming out of him. Now all of a sudden, here we are, just a screwy finish that was just really, okay, I won't say confusing because you could kind of just put two and two together what's going on. She's turning on The Fiend. But that was a really lame finish to a WrestleMania match. I mean, how do you go from having all those theatrics weeks on end to no theatrics at all? Just that, okay, you could count the one thing with Alexa. But, you had more theatrics in the Alexa Bliss Randy Orton match from Fastlane. And now they threw that out the window. I don't know. Anyway, let's move on. And here we are right away. You know, we go from something supposedly serious like this to more goofballishness backstage. This was really worthless. Bailey approaches Bischoff, Hogan, and Titus. You know, basically she's talking about how better she is than all of them, and then they just basically walk away from her. They give her the pirate hat. Okay. Like, what did this do for anybody? What did this do for Bischoff? What did this do for Hogan? What did this do for Titus? What did this do for Bailey? She's not even on the show. She's just here backstage. They shoehorned her in here. Okay, Bailey, we're not going to give you a match. You know, after they gave her the title for the better part of a year, you know, you've got her just basically just, you know, wandering around at WrestleMania. And I don't see, like, what the point of this segment is. Was it supposed to be funny? Was it supposed to be entertaining? Because I was none of that. You know, like, what is the point of having a segment like that at WrestleMania? Like, it's almost like you're having, this is the type of segment you expect on Raw and SmackDown. Worthless, pointless, unsatisfying, stupid, moronic, and here it is at Mania. And this is why people, you know, always say, like, the majesty and magic of Mania fades every year. We move on to Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler defeating Natalya and Tamina. This was actually a decent match, I have to say. Like, I can't say I was bored. I will say something here. This match was better than Sasha and Bianca. It truly was. It really, truly was better. I don't know. They just kept a really good flow going. I wasn't really bored during it. You know, and here they are. Like, I mean, you know, I don't even see why they even had this match to begin with, to tell you the truth. This was just like, we need challengers, so let's just throw this random team. Why is Tamina with Natalya? There is no reason why. Yeah, they're putting them together because they're both second generation wrestlers. Okay, but why is Tamina not with Roman? I mean, for God's sakes, I don't understand how he's the head of the table. He has a family, and you have some of that family on the roster in Nia Jax and Tamina, and they're often just pointless tag teams. Like, this is not doing anything for either one of them. Most of the people in this match have won the women's title. So I don't think that Tamina has won it. You know, so what's the reason of keeping her out of the Roman Reigns faction when the faction is barely even a faction? It's Paul Heyman and Jey Uso with Roman. That's not really a faction. So it's not really a team. It's not really a family. I mean, Paul Heyman is not a family member. He's just a stooge, you know, in that role. So why not get more people in there, decorate it a little bit, make it a little bit more lustrous, and you know, we're not getting that. Instead, tag matches. But it was good, so I can't knock it. I'm just saying that it did not feel special. This is a match where I'm saying that it's good. I was entertained, but I'm not going to remember it after tonight. So, was it truly good? See, that's the questions we need to ask ourselves. I've seen people say, oh, this match was great. Oh, this match was awesome. Are you really going to remember Bianca and Sasha past these couple of days now? I mean, do you really remember it from night 1 to night 2? Because I got to tell you, like, I can't even really tell you, besides the guerrilla press, what really happened in that match. Like, I've completely blocked it out already. Like, what even happened? I know Bianca won the title, but I don't remember any memorable exchanges beyond that impressive display of strength. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not just trying to try my hardest to knock night 1, but it really was just that forgettable. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn have... Again, this was not as good as the women's match. In fact, it was really fucking lousy. Like, after all that build with Zayn and the character and everything, and we get none of that. And I don't know how you could factor that into a match, but they can figure it out. Trust me, they've done things, you know, miracles with matches that reflect a wrestler's character. Logan Paul was pretty much completely worthless here. he was just here to push Zayn down at the end, and then he raises the hand of Kevin Owens, and Owens, they try to make him the badass. They're still trying to give him the Stone Cold treatment. Oh, he stunned the guest. He stunned Logan Paul. Oh, like, did anyone, like, see that stunner and not give a shit? Like, I'm just like, okay, I get it. A lot of people feel that Logan Paul's an asshole. I even made videos in the past saying it. But I'm not, like, really a big Logan Paul hater. I've kind of gotten past the whole YouTube controversy thing with him from a few years back. And I'm not saying this is a great guy, but, like, I'm not dying to see him get the stunner from Kevin Owens. And this really was, like, this was a SmackDown match. This was not a WrestleMania match. This wasn't even a big feud. We've seen these guys wrestle 1,000 times before, which makes it that less special. Here it is again. Okay, great. We got another Owens-Zayn match, and that's basically what it was. Just another Owens-Zayn match. Nothing with the character of Zayn that's entertained us for so long. Prior to the match, Zayn's promo, that was better than the match. Just seeing Zayn freak out. I mean, Zayn's character, as I said, does not get enough praise. I mean, he is doing a better job than Roman Reigns. I mean, because I don't know, he's given the chance to expand his character. Every week he kind of introduces a new element to his story, to his little universe, to his character. And that's what I like. It's an ever-growing gimmick. It's interesting, and it plays off of who Zayn is in real life, But anyway, backstage, so that was really just... that was kind of terrible. Not kind of, it was. Match was a complete bust. Backstage, we've got Matt Riddle talking to Khali. Khali's not responding. He's talking about the size of Khali's hands. RVD comes in, gives them rolling papers, which I found to be hilarious. Like, this is a guy where basically his career was, like, destroyed. They stripped him of the world titles back in 2006 because of marijuana. But now because it's being legalized everywhere, now I guess it's okay to show rolling papers on TV. I think they could have actually even gone further with the Matt Riddle RVD angle here, because you have the two stoner characters. You have the past generation, the current generation. I don't even think you really need to have Khali here. He didn't really do anything for this segment. I mean, really, just have Riddle approach RVD and just have at it. I mean, I don't understand what the whole Khali thing was about. But, I mean, it was definitely better than the Bayley backstage segment. Sheamus defeated Riddle in what was a pretty decent match. Sheamus slipped off the top rope. Thank God, that could have ended in disaster. These guys seem to have a pretty good chemistry. Not a really terrific, amazing match, that I'm going to remember forever and ever, but it was decent enough, and it had a good finish. Sheamus kicking the shit out of Riddle's face with the bro kick as he went for a springboard moonsault, and he seemed like he caught him right here underneath the jaw, and he was bleeding after that. So we've got Sheamus winning his third U.S. championship. I've talked about this time and time again. I don't see what the point is of awarding people have already won world championships, secondary titles. They've done it once in a while, but to me it's ridiculous. You've had Sheamus already have more than a taste of the main events in the past. And it seemed like they were kind of toying with the idea at one time that they were going to do Sheamus and McIntyre, so they kind of gave him this secondary role, and it's supposed to be like, okay, he couldn't get into the main event, so he's angry, so now he's going to exact revenge on Matt Riddle, instead, and win the secondary title. But we're looking at it as him winning the secondary title instead of forcing his way in to the main event, or something like that, which would have made more sense. He's still not looking too much like a tough guy because he's settling for second best. And I don't get, like, why does he need the U.S. title? What does this do for Sheamus at this point in his career? I mean, we're talking about a guy that has been there now for how long has he been there? He's been there for 12 fucking years. And he's winning a U.S. title. It makes no sense to me whatsoever that this guy would win a title at this stage in his career. That really does nothing for him. This is, to me, a U.S. title is an up-and-coming title. You're not ready for the world title? Give them the U.S. title to build up to it. This was the same thing with the Intercontinental Championship. When Macho Man won the IC title, it was a way of, kind of giving him something right before he would win the world title, about a year later. So it makes no sense, it would have made no sense to go back and then give him the IC title, but that's how we do things now. We work backwards because we can't figure out what to do, so we're going to do this placeholder in the meantime, and that's exactly what it is. It is a placeholder above all else. Up next, we had Apollo Crews defeating Big E in the Nigerian drum fight match. And, again, is this going to be a cinematic match? Is this one going to be, something interesting? Because we don't know what this is. But I think I said it in my SmackDown review. I said, like a week ago, this is probably going to be just like some kind of street fight with drums surrounding the ring. And that's exactly what it was. And they didn't even use the drums. There's a gong there for some reason. There's kendo sticks. Are those Nigerian? Are they? I mean, another name for kendo sticks is Singapore canes. And here they are. And, they're using the steel steps and everything. And, we see a Uranagi right off the apron onto the steps, which look pretty dangerous. And it ends with Apollo Crews going to the top. He goes for a splash onto the table, onto Big E. Big E moves to the last second. He crashes through. Big E picks him up. Big ending. But then a giant wrestler who I think he's from NXT or somewhere, they didn't even say who he was, came in and just crushed Big E. Apollo then ended up getting the win, and here's your new Intercontinental Champion. Just okay. It was all right, I suppose. It wasn't a bad match. I didn't see the need for the gimmick. Like, I guess this was a way of, like, kind of spicing up the Street Fighter No Holds Barred, but that's what it was. There was nothing special about this. They could have done something interesting with this. They really could have. They could have had... Can you imagine if they had, like, a bunch of people surrounding them? Remember, like, the Iron Circle match with Ken Shamrock and Steve Blackman? They could have just had, like, a bunch of Nigerians surrounding them playing drums. It could have been some tribal thing. Could have been really cool. But instead, we kind of just get this, a standard fare, no-holds-barred match. It's not exciting. It didn't feel WrestleMania. It didn't really feel like anything much. It was just a decent match. Not bad, but not very good either. Rhea Ripley defeated Asuka. This was better than Sasha and Belair. As you can see, I really didn't care for that match. Rhea Ripley, she's okay, I guess. I do not see what the big rage is about her. That everyone, really seems to like Rhea Ripley. Well, it's the marks, of course. I find it really hard to look at Rhea Ripley. I don't know what it is. And I'm going to be quite honest with you. People say, oh, well, not all divas or women had to look, they didn't have to be good looking. And people bring up Luna Vachon all the time. But for some reason, Luna Vachon just had the look where, actually, you know what? I did like looking at her because she deserved my attention. Rhea Ripley, I don't know, the whole look with the gauges and, the short hair and everything, and I don't, and I don't know, the outfit, just everything just doesn't do it for me. And I gotta tell you, this theme song that she had, what is it called? New Year's End or something like that? You guys know that I'm a big metal fan. But this song fucking sucks, especially live. I mean, really, it's the same line repeated over and over, almost like some of those dumbass rap songs. You know, where they repeat the same thing over and over. This is the same thing, basically. This was not a really good performance at all. Anyway, the match, I don't get. Asuka does a move that like I've never seen before. A fucking DDT onto the outside. I've not seen that since I think Sabu and Rey Mysterio. Remember he did something like that. There was like a DDT onto a table, but the match ended. Here, Rhea Ripley gets hit with a fucking DDT off a ring apron. And Asuka rolls back into the ring. And Rhea Ripley gets up at a count of 6. I mean, Asuka should have had to pick up Rhea's limp body and put her in the ring. Her head slammed off. And you could, debate like, oh, how much of her head really hit. In wrestling terms, her head hit the thin layer of mat that separates the concrete. So, for all intents and purposes, she should be dead. Meaning she should be, like, knocked out, roll her back in the ring, and pin her. But no, the match is gone. That's only half the match, folks. We have a whole nother half to get to. I mean, and she's coming back fresh as a daisy after this. I don't get, like, how we can watch this in all seriousness and keep ignoring this stuff. I don't get how people watch AEW and NXT and they can watch finisher after finisher, big move after big move, and not look at this and say, enough already. It's ridiculous. Tens of thousands of moves in every match to the point where you're just like, all right, just end it. It should have ended a long time ago. This is why I see goofballs praising the Thunder Rosa Britt Baker match, which I talked about. I believe we discussed it in a SmackDown review at the beginning of the review. I usually run through different things that have happened in wrestling throughout the week, and I talked about that match. And I said I didn't like that match because I thought it was a bad match. I thought it was a shitty match because they were hitting each other with everything but the kitchen sink, and they're 90-pound girls. And everyone seems to be fine with that. Oh, great match of the year. No, to me, like, worst match of the year. I'd rather watch Sasha versus Belair because at least that match made more sense. It was presented in a way where, okay, at least it's not so over the top. They're not bleeding, gallons of blood and kicking out of big moves like Death Valley drivers through fucking tables. But this brought back bad memories with the DDT off the apron. I was like, okay, the match should have been over a long time ago, and it's still going. And Asuka loses the belt. And, Asuka has held on to this title, and they did not do a single significant thing with her within that title reign. That is sad. Because, right, she has not lost that title since Cringy Lynch gave it to her. And I thought, Cringy Lynch was dropping hints on Facebook or Instagram or wherever it was about, coming to Mania. She did some cryptic thing where it spelt out night 1 and she wasn't on night 1 and she wasn't on night 2 and she wasn't anywhere. I'll assume she's going to be on Raw tonight. I don't really give a shit. I don't really care. That wouldn't have made the match better. And quite frankly, it might have made it worse. So I'll leave well enough alone. Then we've got the Bellas coming out on the stage after, Bayley is harassing Hogan and Titus for the umpteenth time. The Bellas come, they throw her down the ramp, and there was just something really off about this segment. Like, it didn't feel like they were coming to the rescue. I don't know, the way how they did this beatdown, it kind of felt more like they were heels in a way. I don't know, but like I was like, okay, well, that didn't seem very heroic or babyface-ish. It just kind of felt this very like empty feeling, and the crowd didn't cheer. Actually, they booed, and it's like, yeah, because this did not feel like they were coming to the rescue of Hogan and Titus, because they don't need saving. They're grown-ass men. We're talking about Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil. These guys that tower over Bayley. Hogan. It's Hulk Hogan, for God's sakes. And I don't get it, guys. This did not do anything. People probably would have expected Becky Lynch before they expected the Bellas to come back. Quite frankly, like I said, I'm not complaining. I'll take the Bellas over cringy Lynch any day of the week. But once again, like all these segments with Bayley, like they didn't do anything for anyone or entertain anyone. They were the most boring, weirdest, dumbest segments ever. And here it just felt really cold and weird and just off. Anyway, let's get to the really good stuff, and that is the main event as Roman Reigns retained against Edge and Daniel Bryan. And I really wasn't sure how this was going to go because I was like, oh, they might actually try to like pull a fast one and have Daniel Bryan, weasel out a win here. And then again, it could be Edge because he's the Royal Rumble winner. Well, it ends up being none of them, and Roman Reigns ends up retaining, which was actually the most unlikely outcome to me, and I was actually kind of happy with it. I think that was a pretty good swerve of sorts, sort of like a swerve in a way. Once Edge, you had Jey Uso getting executioned onto the steel steps, so you thought he was going to be out for good. But just as Edge looks like he's got them in position, and during that moment, that's when I decided that I was watching a really good match. The drama with the concertos as he goes to lift up the steel chair and he hits Daniel Bryan. He's got Roman where he wants him. He picks up the chair again. He's about to hit Roman. And in comes Jey Uso with a super kick right there. And it ruins Edge's perfect opportunity. And I thought the way everything was laid out, everything looked really good here. Everything just looked really tight, and it really played out very well. And then in the end, you just have Roman Reigns doing his own concertos, and then he ends up putting them both on top of one another and gets the pin. I didn't have any problems with this match. I thought that this was a massive improvement over what we saw at Fastlane. We had Roman looking pretty good here. Yeah, he did get the help from Jey Uso, but he still ended up looking pretty good in the end. The performances of everybody involved, and I know this is in large part to Edge. Having Edge there is a big difference maker. This is a guy that really knows what he's doing, and he's known what he's been doing for a very long time. To see him come back, you saw that he really contributed a very big piece to this match. And this was a Mania-worthy main event. Not Belair and Sasha, not last year with the finishers only Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar match. This is a main event that you deserve to see, when you watch WrestleMania, because you're getting the very best here. And you look at the juxtaposition of Belair and Sasha versus this, and you really see truly men at work here. You see superstars at work here. And yeah, Daniel Bryan, as much as I complained, he had a good contribution here. They didn't make him look too dominant. They made him look like the underdog. He had to get in there and be the opportunist where it mattered and try to get his spots in. I thought you had a pretty good spot with the double crossface. Really good overall. Night 2, without saying, was the better night for Mania. And this was kind of the complete opposite, I think, of last year, where I think night 1 was better. Wasn't it? Well, it did have the Boneyard match. And while I think that, this main event, was it better than the Boneyard match? I don't know. I really have to think about that for quite some time, because that was a masterfully done match. But night 1 just looked like a complete joke in comparison to what we got here. I mean, there was nothing that was ungodly terrible that I couldn't stand watching it. There were a few things, obviously, like Zayn and Owens, that just did not do it for me. The Bayley segments. Things were pretty forgettable here. Cruz and Big E, Rhea Ripley and Asuka. These are matches I'm not going to be remembering past me talking about them here. So was it a truly good Mania overall? It was, I guess, you know, it was okay. It was not tremendous. It wasn't really terrible. It was really great having a genuine crowd there. It's going to be really cringy going back to people on screens and everything. I really have no desire to even go back and watching SmackDown. Like, I'm going to tell you something. Not watching SmackDown was a breath of fresh air. So one of the ideas that I'm kind of toying with here is just doing pay-per-view reviews going forward, because really SmackDown has reached the point where there was no reason for me to even watch SmackDown. Like, I gotta tell you something, I missed a week of wrestling. You know, I did not watch anything from SmackDown last week up until this point, and I gotta tell you something. WrestleMania was already, you know, I didn't miss anything apparently from what was being talked about, because there was no real storyline presented that I needed to know. So I don't really see what would be the point even going forward with that. You know, we talk about it every week. We say it's terrible every week. I praise the Sami Zayn, you know, promo. I say how Roman should be growing out this character every week now for months. And I don't know if people noticed that, and, you know, I'm happy you guys enjoy the reviews, but I don't really see the point of doing them anymore, because I look at them and I see that they're almost the same review over and over. You know, and I try to entertain the best I can, but, you know, I don't know. I'll have to think about it, really, what I want to do going forward as it pertains to wrestling on this channel. But I think maybe the pay-per-view reviews might be a good compromise for everybody. And I know someone had even suggested that a while back. Anyway, guys, let me know what you thought down in the comments down below. What did you think of the show? Did you think night 1 was better than night 2, or you think that night 2 was better than night 1? Because that's what I think. I think it's better. Anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bells to get all notifications when I post all my new videos. I want to thank all my patrons for your continued support. And thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time.